Hi guys, this is Kelly, and I just wanted to share with you some of the books I've read recently. I'd been meaning to start my channel back at the beginning of the year, and life just kept getting in the way, and finally I just decided I need to just do it. And so I've been keeping track of all the books that I had read from January through April, and if I shared all of those, it would be a very long video. So I took the 20 books I had read over that time, and I just picked the 9 that I felt like I really wanted to say something about. So these are just they're a wide variety. Not all of them were the ones I loved. There's a range of star ratings, but they're the 9 that I actually had something to say. So the way I want to do this is, instead of going like in order from like best to worst or the other way, I want to start off with some of my 5-star reads, go down to the only 2 rating, and then go back up to 5, so we can kind of sandwich the good stuff, you know, around the things I didn't love as much. And so the first one is a 5-star read, and it was A Monster Calls, which is written by Patrick Ness and based off a story by Siobhan Dowd, and this is the illustrated version with illustrations by Jim Kay. And this has been around everywhere, and you don't really want to know a lot about the story, so I'm not going to give you a synopsis other than it's just about a young boy who is called upon by a monster. And the illustrations in this book really add, I think, to the ambiance. I'm trying to find some of them that to show you. So they just, I don't know, I really enjoyed having the illustrated version if I was going to read this, because it really like brought on what was going on in this boy's mind at the time and in his life. And I also really love this because I felt like it was a very realistic view about how grief affects a person. I read this, you know, like right after a year of quite a bit of grief. I've had a close family member die, and some other death in our family over the last year. And so reading something that just felt genuine about how somebody deals with what it leads up to death and grief and all that, it just was cathartic for me, and I really enjoyed seeing it from the eyes of a young boy. And the other thing I really liked was the monster tells a series of fables inside this story, and I really liked how the fables had kind of 2 sides to them. You could interpret them in different ways, and I really enjoyed that about reading it. And I don't really have anything bad to say about it, because I really did think it was perfect the way it is written right now for me. And then we're moving on to a 4-star. I'm holding up Winter by Marissa Meyer, but I actually read the entire Lunar Chronicles except for the graphic novel. I haven't done the graphic novel yet, but I read Cinder and Scarlet, Cress, the novella Fairest, Winter, and Stars Above. And I listened to all of these on audiobook, and it took me about 3 months to listen to them, and you know, obviously I was reading other things at the same time. And I would highly recommend the audiobook. It's narrated by Rebecca Soler, and I thought she did an amazing job. I obviously listened to all of them, and it was great listening to her voice. And now I don't even think I could read the real versions, because all I can picture is her voice in my head if I were to read them. And so I just prefer to hear her voice while it's going on. So you should definitely listen to it if you want a good audiobook. And these are just fairy tale retellings that are, you know, like sci-fi, you know, like futuristic, in space. And so like it starts off Cinder, which is like a Cinderella story, and goes on and on and on. And I don't want to go into detail because obviously the story builds as it goes on, so you don't want to like get any spoilers from the later books. And what I liked about this, I liked binge reading them all in a row, because one of the things that doesn't make these 5-star reads for me is that I don't feel like you can read them by themselves. Like I got to the end of Cinder and I was like, that's it? That's the end? And if I had to have waited for a year to read the next book, I would have been like really mad and might have rated it lower. But because I could go to the next one, it was great. So now that they're all out, you know, you could just read it in a row, because it doesn't really feel like individual stories. It just feels like one long story that you have to get all the way through. So I would suggest having time to be able to binge read it all in a row, or else it just feels like you're stopping in the middle of the story. And I like the way the series kind of develops into like, it's like a war story, and so like it kind of, you are building up to this like climactic experience. The thing that makes it not a 5-star read for me, because I really like the characters, I really like the action in it, but it just didn't quite get to 5 stars for me because I didn't really feel urgency. Like, this is about war, and this is about a fight for freedom and all that, and I never really felt like I was worried about what the outcome was going to be. And, you know, there are books that can do that. Like, I feel like Harry Potter, you did have some, like, you had people that you loved that died. There was, like, stuff that was happening that you were like, is it going to turn out right? And I just never felt a sense of urgency when I was reading this. It was just kind of fun reading and action, but it didn't quite get to, like, what's going to happen at the end kind of moment for me. And the next one is In the Woods by Tana French. This was a 3.5 star read for me. And this is the first book in the Dublin Murder Squad. It's an adult mystery book. And it centers around a set of partners, detectives. And the male detective, Rob Ryan, when he was young, he was a part of a group of friends. And his 2 friends disappeared. And that case has never been solved. And so where we pick up in this book is that he and his partner are now being assigned to a murder case that is happening at the same place that this disappearance that happened to him and his friends earlier in his life. And so you get that kind of personal connection between him and the old case with the new case. And you kind of you learn a lot about what happened in the old case as you're doing the current case. And this isn't a bad book. Like, I enjoyed it. I liked the way the mystery developed and, like, following the case. I enjoyed the writing. She has a very lyrical writing style, so it just kind of, like, didn't feel like the classic murder mystery detective that's like, like step by step. Like, it really kind of flowed like a literary fiction book. And that also might be its detriment. That might be part of why it didn't get 5 stars from me, because I went into it thinking it was just your classic mystery novel. And that's why I want to tell you, don't go into it thinking it's just a mystery novel. If you're just looking for, like, simple, like, step by step, this is how the detective solved it, that's not what this is. It's very much more lyrical writing and a whole story. They're developing the characters really well. The 2 detectives, you see their friendship and how it changes over the course of the case. Like, this case doesn't get solved, like, super quick. Like, we are following along and seeing how it wears on them, each of them separately, and how it wears on their friendship together. And I really enjoyed that about it. It was more than just a mystery, but then also, I think I was just looking for a simple mystery, and so that's why I had trouble rating it, because I was confused about what I ended up reading. And also, the reason why I rated it a little low is that the main character just drove me insane. Like, I don't mind an unlikable character, but sometimes I guess I need to know that going in, that they're unlikable, because for this, by about 3/4 of the way, I was like, oh, just shut up. I do not like this guy, and I just wanted to, like, stop being in his head. I will continue with the series, though, because the next one is from his partner's point of view. So I could be like, no more Rob Ryan, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I want to hear from Cassie, like, let's go and see her point of view now. So hopefully that will, like, make it bump up to a higher rating when I read the next book. And then the next one is I Am the Messenger by Markus Zusak. This is the same person that wrote the book Thief. And I gave this 3 stars. This is about a man named Ed, who's just kind of your average Joe. And he starts getting these cards, these playing cards, that give him tasks to do. And you don't really want to know anything else other than that if you're going to read this, because there would be a lot of spoilers. But he just has to do these tasks along the way. And this started out as probably close to a 4-star for me. Like, the whole book, I was like, this is excellent. Like, I really liked the way the characters felt real, and his friends, I just, like, really felt that they were a true friend group. Like, I could picture them hanging out and playing cards together. Like, picture all of it. I could picture all of his friends. And I enjoyed being there for all of his tasks, seeing how he approached them, seeing the way he interacted with people. I really was loving it, but as we were getting towards the end, I was thinking, I don't think there's any way he could end this book that I'm going to enjoy it. And I was right. I did not like the ending at all. I would have actually, if I could tell past Kelly this, I would have said, stop the book at, like, page, 3:40. Don't go. Don't read those last 15 pages because you're just gonna be angry. And so that was why it lowered down to 3 for me. And I can't say that everybody would feel that way, but for me the ending just felt really pretentious and just did not care for it. But I wouldn't like say I regret reading it because I did like the way he developed the characters, and I did enjoy myself for 300 pages before we got there. So I can't say I regret it. I just say it definitely bumped down my rating because I think he just had a story that just didn't really have an ending to me. And I only have 1 2-star rating, and I don't have the actual physical book because I owned it and I got rid of it like almost immediately. Like it just made me mad, so I got rid of it. And that was Forget You by Jennifer Echols. And Jennifer Echols writes young adult romance, and I have nothing against young adult romance. I read a lot of YA romance. And so it's not about the genre. It's like there was just something about this book I really didn't like. So it wasn't the plot. The plot was fine, you know, it's typical, whatever. It was about a girl named Zoe, and she gets in a car accident and loses her memory of that night. And so we're kind of like trying to piece together what happened to lead up to the accident and why suddenly this guy that she's always hated is like treating her like they're together, and the guy that she was her boyfriend is now not talking to her. So she's trying to figure this all out. Plot, fine. But what I didn't like is that we get introduced to Zoe as this like intelligent girl who is, you know, captain of the swim team, who is really independent, who hasn't really been dating much in high school because she has other things she wants to concentrate on. She wants to concentrate on school. She wants to concentrate on swimming. She has other things in her life other than boys. And I really appreciate that because you don't see that a lot. And I don't mind that she gets into a romance. That's not what bothers me. It's like she suddenly becomes incredibly stupid. And I know that high schoolers can be stupid, but if you built up this girl to be like an intelligent girl and independent, and then suddenly be like, oh, you had something kind of sexual with a boy, and now you think that he's going to love you forever, even though you know that he's the kind of boy that like will have sex with anybody he meets. Like, come on. Let's give girls a little bit of credit that they wouldn't like immediately become incredibly stupid the minute that they do anything with a boy. Like, that just bugs me. Like, write characters that have some depth, and if you're going to start out that way, don't suddenly change them into idiots later on. So that's my rant about that book, so we'll move on. So now we're going to go back up towards better books. And the next book is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. And this book is about Monty, who, it's a historical fiction, and Monty is like about to go on a grand tour of Europe with his best friend Percy, who he has a crush on, and his sister Felicity is along for the ride. And this is probably going to make people mad. So most people that I see rating this book give it a 4 or 5. They loved it. It was their favorite book of 2017, and they thought it was hilarious, and I didn't dislike it. I gave 3 stars. I thought it was average. I enjoyed myself. I don't regret it. It was a fun read, but I didn't think it was amazing. Like, I think the hype ruined it for me, because I went into this thinking, oh, it's going to be the funniest book. I'm just going to like be laughing, and I didn't. I laughed out loud one time through this entire book, and it was all right. Hijinks, you know, it was like a classic road trip book for me. And to me, that's not a 5-star read. Like, the characters I didn't really love. I mean, Monty annoyed me for the majority of the book. I thought his character development took a really long time to get there. Like, he did eventually kind of like build to a like ending that, you know, he changed, but it took so long that I was like, oh my gosh, do I have to hear more of Monty? A lot of people really love him, but I just didn't. He bugged me. I liked Percy. I loved Felicity. I thought she's an independent woman. Great. Awesome. I'll read about her. I hear the next book she writes is about Felicity, and so I'll read it. I'm not like against Mackenzie Lee. This was not like amazing for me. It was just all right. And I also, the thing that bugs me is that The romance was cute. I liked the romance. But I really hate when miscommunication becomes like the main plot device. And in this romance, I think that's what happened. Like there was something that happened towards the beginning where they could have been together and just miscommunication happened. And I'm like, really? Now we're going to spend the whole book waiting for them to get together because of like one piece of miscommunication. And I'm like, people just talk to each other. Just talk. And that wouldn't happen. So that's my opinion. Don't hate me for it. I mean, I didn't hate the book, I promise. It's just not my favorite, like it is a lot of other people's favorite. And so now we're moving on to The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. So we're going in a completely different way. This is a classic, obviously. It's about a time traveler who builds a machine that he can go into the future, and he's kind of like talking about his story to his buddies of what he sees in the future. And this is a tiny little book. I guess most of H.G. Wells' books are tiny. It's the first one of his I've ever read, and I was like, oh, I'll just give it a go. Like, I have a bunch of classics. I want to get through them, and since it was small, I thought, give it a try. And I was really shocked. Like, I really enjoy this book. And I'm not even a sci-fi person. I just started reading it, and I was actually, like, kind of getting, like, suspenseful, like, feeling a sense of urgency of, like, what's gonna happen? And I'm like, did not expect that with a classic, because, you know, a lot of times classics are slow moving and, you know, just whatever, we're getting there. But I was actually on the edge of my seat through some of this, and when it finished, I was like, I'm gonna go out and buy some more H.G. Wells. So I went out and bought a couple more books by him, so I really enjoyed it. Like, so, and he does do a lot of political commentary of the time, which I guess is common for his other books, and I don't mind that. Like, put a little political things into your writing, great. So I would recommend it if you are looking for a short classic that won't take you a lot of time to read, but that'll keep you entertained and won't have like slow language that gets in your way. Go for that. And the next book is another classic, a children's classic, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And this edition has also Through the Looking Glass, which I haven't read yet, so I'll get around to that, by Lewis Carroll. And, you know, everybody knows what this book is about, I'm sure, so I don't need to tell you. But I gave it a 4.5 stars. I just thought it was quirky and cute and fun and so unlike Disney version. Like, I had in my mind the Disney like cartoon from my childhood, and I was like, no, this isn't like that at all. It's just weird, and weird in a great way. Weird in the way that I was imagining myself being able to read this to my girls someday, and us reading it together and laughing and giggling, and it just gave me a happy moment when I was reading it. And it's easy and short to read, so I would recommend that too as something a little short to read, especially if you have kids that you want to read something to. It's great. It's fun. And then my last and my favorite book that I have read over the last 4 months is What to Say Next by Julie Buxbaum. This is a YA book about two characters, David and Kit. And Kit is kind of a popular girl, not like super popular, but averagely popular. And she one day starts sitting in the cafeteria with a boy who's kind of more of a social pariah named David, who doesn't really have friends. And they kind of just sit together and develop this unlikely friendship, and we follow that friendship in this book and their two perspectives. And I went into this thinking it was just going to be a cute YA romance, and it was really good. I give it 5 stars. I loved so much of it. I loved David. Like, David, I just adored him. He was just so cute, and I just really liked him. I liked hearing his perspective, what it was like to, he's somewhere on the spectrum. They don't really give it a definition in here, but like, he does kind of talk about Asperger's, but he doesn't define himself that way. And I just loved hearing from him and how it felt to not interact with people, and the times that upset him, and the times that he was like, whatever, you know, this is me, this is how I am, and his relationship with his sister. This also has deeper themes other than just a romance. The Kit is dealing with the fact that her dad died suddenly in a car accident, and so we're following her grief and her mother's grief and their relationship. So it does have deeper topics that it's going into. And this is what I'm talking about when I was saying with Forget You by Jennifer Echols, that you can write teens that have depth. You can write them to be 3-dimensional humans. There are teens in this book that are friends of Kit that are like the idiots that do stupid things, that say mean things and are just kind of your stereotypical teens, but then there are ones like the two main characters that show intelligence, show sensitivity, show all the range of emotion that a human has, and that you don't need to be an adult to show those emotions and have those feelings. That you can be a teen and have different aspects of your character that are entertaining to even adults to read. And so this is an example of how I think teens should be written. They should be written to be like real people. And so I just loved it. And that's all of my 9 books that I'm going to review for now. Hopefully in the future I'll be doing these more regularly so that I can talk about a smaller amount of books, since I tend to babble, I guess. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.